Good evening and thank you for joining us. Lakehead University has responded to allegations of systemic racism leveled against LU by former law school dean Angelique Eaglewoman.
While interim president Moira McPherson acknowledges that the school isn't immune to the racism that persists in our society as a whole, she stopped short of confirming the specific allegations laid out by Eaglewoman. Ryan Benazzo has more.
Lakehead University interim president Moira McPherson and Board of Governors Chair David Tamblyn issued a joint statement in the wake of the systemic racism allegations brought forth by former law school dean Angelique Eaglewoman that she says led to her departure less than 2 years into the job. The statement reads, in part, "We need to address the reality that systemic racism exists throughout society and that despite our best efforts, Lakehead University is not immune." A statement that McPherson later repeated nearly verbatim to reporters, but insists it doesn't verify Eaglewoman's claims.
No, I think in our statement today, what we acknowledged is that throughout society, systemic racism exists. And, this includes, of course, despite our efforts, it would include Lakehead University. We're not immune.
When asked to clarify how that statement doesn't verify Eaglewoman's allegations, McPherson said it merely applies to the school's ongoing challenges to ensure all policies and procedures are written and implemented in the most inclusive way possible.
If they're not addressed, they can create a disadvantage for racialized individuals.
McPherson did try to debunk some of Eaglewoman's claims, including that senior management denied the dean's requests for cultural competency training for staff. McPherson notes, in fact, that staff have undergone cultural training for years. She also says it's too soon to specifically commit to an independent review of systemic racism at the school or to implement any of the specific recommendations laid out by Indigenous leaders on Tuesday. But McPherson notes she will reach out to them and has already accepted an invitation to meet with the school's Aboriginal Advisory Committee.
It would be very wrong of us to say what those actions should be coming out of that consultation. We need to listen, we need to reflect, and I think we need to come up with that action plan and then move from there.
She says LU will name an interim law school dean in the near future and will move to identify a permanent dean after that. McPherson fully expects and hopes that a diverse group of candidates will be identified. Ryan Benazzo, TVT News.
With the Ontario election campaign about to formally get underway, a scathing assessment today of the Wynne government's budget projections. Auditor General Bonnie Lysyk says the Liberals have massively understated the deficits that they would run over the next several years. John Musselman has more.
The Auditor General's scathing report is an indictment of this Liberal government.
Why is the Premier hiding the truth?
There is an accounting disagreement, Mr. Speaker.
The opposition parties were on the attack today, blaming the Liberals for trying to mislead taxpayers about Ontario's financial health. It follows the release of the auditor's report on the government's pre-election finances.
The deficit for 2018-19 should be forecast as $11.7 billion, or 75% more than the $6.7 billion presented by government.
The auditor claims the Liberals underestimated the financial impact of giving people a reduction on their hydro bills.
The government is borrowing money to the bills that the people are getting are higher than what they're paying, so the government is paying the electricity generators. That bill is going to come due.
The report goes on to suggest the government hasn't properly forecast pension expenses. And with an election just 6 weeks away, the Tories pounced on this report.
The Liberals promised they would balance the budget. They lied. They promised they had a $6.7 billion deficit. They lied. What else are they lying about? You simply can't trust them.
But the Liberals dismissed the outrage, calling this an argument between accounting firms and nothing more.
Everything that is happening in Ontario is fully disclosed and transparent. The agencies and the other organizations have clean audits by their accounting firms. Nothing is hidden.
In a fixed election year, the government must provide a report on the province's finances. John Musselman, CTV News.
A pitch has been made to both the federal and provincial governments calling for more immigration to Northern Ontario. The Northern Policy Institute says Ontario should take steps to encourage more immigration to northern parts of the province, such as Thunder Bay and the surrounding region. Between 2001 and 2016, almost 30% of Canada's immigrants made the Greater Toronto Area their new home. During that same time period, Thunder Bay received only 695 immigrants. Policy Institute CEO Charles Surtwell says Ontario needs to take more control over its immigration intake and distribution.
It's clear that population needs to change here in Northern Ontario, that one of the ways that's going to change is through immigration, and one of the ways that's proven elsewhere, proven in Manitoba, proven in the Atlantic provinces, is by allocating a certain number of immigration spots to those regions.
The proposed pilot program for Northern Ontario would involve 1,000 to 1,500 new immigrants each year over a 5-year time period. The program models the successful Atlantic program, which has allowed maritime towns to match their skill needs with a potential immigrant's employment goals.
The Thunder Bay Airport welcomed back one of the largest airplanes in the world this afternoon. This Antonov plane touched down at around 1 o'clock. The heavy cargo jet was chartered by Bombardier to transport light rail parts from its plant in Austria to help speed up production of streetcars for the Toronto Transit Commission. The aircraft has a wingspan of over 70 meters and can carry a maximum load of 230 metric tons. It completed the 7,500-kilometer journey in 9 hours, 40 minutes. Ryan Brading is the manager of airport services. He says weather conditions were ideal today. Landing an aircraft of that size still requires special preparations.
Because of the tail height, the physical size of the aircraft, the airport authority has to reclassify its main runway and reduce its level of service in order to accommodate the size of the aircraft. Even though it's parking on the apron, it's still within the protected airspace outside the runway.
Bombardier officials once again have refused comment on the unique delivery. This is the third time, though, that the company has chartered an Antonov flight for this purpose, most recently back in October. The aircraft will depart from Thunder Bay tomorrow night.
OPP are investigating an armed robbery in Shunya Township. It happened Tuesday just before midnight when a man wearing a black balaclava entered the Flying J truck stop on Highway 1117. He had a knife and demanded cash. The employee refused to hand over any money, and the would-be thief then fled empty-handed. The suspect is described as being a Caucasian male, about 5'10" with a slim build, short light brown hair, and wearing a black or dark-colored hoodie. Anyone with information on the incident is asked to contact OPP.
It was a packed council chamber in Fort Frances yesterday for a special meeting on a land dispute. Members of council met with the leaders of 4 area First Nations, federal and provincial officials, and lawyers from all sides. The goal was to sort out the issues surrounding the ongoing legal battle between the town and the First Nations over ownership of Point Park. Adam Riley was there and files this report.
It's a legal battle that dates back to the early 20th century. Who owns Point Park, the town of Fort Frances, or Agency 1 First Nations? On Tuesday, representatives from both the town and the 4 First Nations met in council chambers to discuss an addition to reserve, or ATR. Deputy Mayor Wendy Burnetta says the town has never gone through an ATR in the past, and council wanted to know more about the process and pose questions to representatives from both the federal and provincial governments.
Some of the main concerns are that it is so close to our community of the town of Fort Frances that there's a lot of things that we need to discuss in terms of planning and zoning and the use for the lands. There are issues that are still outstanding in terms of the parklands, and we're still going through those discussions, and we're looking forward to coming to some agreement.
Another concern pertained to access to park area roads such as Lake Road and Ildewild Drive, as there are private residences and businesses such as La Place Rendezvous Hotel nearby, which rely on that access. However, during discussion between legal representatives for the 2 parties, it was revealed the First Nations had dropped the roads off from the ATR. While not the topic of discussion at Tuesday's meeting, council is also concerned about an ongoing legal battle between the Couchiching First Nation and the owners of the Border Power Dam. Fort Frances isn't named in the suit, but the town could face repercussions should the First Nation be successful in its bid. The First Nation is seeking an injunction to cease operation of the dam, which would cause water levels to drop in the lake and put those living downstream of the dam at risk of flooding.
It will affect many of our property owners, and in addition to many of our cottage owners in the area. The dam, of course, does provide us with a power agreement. So, and the town is the owner of the power corporation. So that in that way, we're very involved and are very concerned about the process.
Couchiching First Nation Chief Brian Parole was in attendance at Tuesday's meeting, but declined a request for an interview. Adam Riley, TBT News.
A Thunder Bay business leader is on her way to India today to be recognized for her contributions to women's startups across the Northwest. Rosalind Lockyer is the founding executive director of the Perot Center for Women's Enterprise, and she's now been named as an International Woman of the Decade. Lockyer started Perot 23 years ago and has grown the organization to incorporate all of Northern Ontario as well as Manitoba. Lockyer is receiving the honor for making change in her area and helping create a better community as well as a better world. She credits the distinction to Perot's peer lending network, which is universally the largest of its kind. Lockyer insists the award was more of a team effort, and she hopes to bring back a lot of new and unique ideas to help local women.
The most important thing to me at that event will be meeting and talking to other women that are doing wonderful things all over the world so that I can share our story, but also to hear their story.
While Lockyer has won a number of local awards, the event in New Delhi will feature presenters ranging from Nobel Peace Prize winners to Forbes-listed businesswomen.
The owner of Bearwood Furniture here in Thunder Bay is retiring, and the store will be closing down after 25 years in business in the city. Customers flocked to the final sale today to pick up a deal and to say goodbye. The store first opened back in 1993 in a small auto body shop. It then moved to this larger location on the corner of 11th Avenue and Fort William Road in 2007. Bearwood owner Alberta Davis says over 60 customers turned up bright and early this morning for the start of their going out of business sale. She says it is a bittersweet end for the operation.
I'm going to miss our customers. We've always had more of a friendship relationship with a lot of them than just a strictly seller-buyer kind of big box type of relationship. It's very exciting, and it's wonderful to have all the support from our customers that we've had for 25 years, and everybody's obviously really excited and looking forward. But it's a new chapter for me, and it's time to retire and move on to other things.
Davis says she expects the sale to run for a couple of weeks with further markdowns in days to come. That sale will end once they run out of inventory.
Lakehead Public Schools staff who are on maternity leave got the chance to bring their babies to work today and engage with some earlier programs.
Ya lassie, did you ever see a lassie go this way and that?
A dozen new mothers gathered to take part in the fun and informative series of workshops. The event has been held every April for the last 5 years. It includes an activity circle where new mothers learn exercises to help with their baby's growth, as well as healthy eating tips for their newborns. Danica LeBlanc leads the early years program at Lakehead Public Schools, and she says interacting with fellow young parents can be beneficial.
You know, sometimes when you have a new baby, you feel like you're in isolation. So coming together and knowing who else is on maternity leave and paternity leave and getting together with them and to introduce them to early on centers and how important they can be in with the babies, to take the babies there every day and interact with other families.
We all really play off of each other and are able to discuss any issues or concerns we have, so it's really nice to get together like this and just kind of catch up with each other and see if we're all on the same page.
Awesome. Anything to add?
Say hi.